लिट वेब के इस मंच पर आप सभी का स्वागत, अभिनंदन। कार्यक्रम की शुरुआत के पहले मैं अनुरोध करूंगा डॉक्टर उषा साहनी, मेरठ के शहीद मंगल पांडे पीजी गर्ल्स कॉलेज, अंग्रेजी की व्याख्याता हैं वहाँ, और स्वयं एक कवयित्री, कथाकार, शिक्षक, शोधार्थी, पिछले लंबे समय से विविध क्षेत्रों में सक्रिय रूप से कार्य कर रही हैं। उनसे अनुरोध है कि वे सरस्वती वंदना के माध्यम से आज के इस कार्यक्रम को शुरू करें। डॉक्टर उषा साहनी।
आभार सर। या कुंदेन्दु तुषार हार धवला, या शुभ्र वस्त्रावृता, या वीणा वरदंड मंडित करा, या श्वेत पद्मासना, या श्वेत पद्मासना। माँ शारदे के श्री चरणों में नमन कर इस कार्यक्रम का शुभारंभ करती हूँ। हमारे बीच हमारे सारे जो एमिनेंट स्पीकर्स हैं वो सब हमारे बीच उपस्थित हैं। And I would start probably in English only because we have many participants from the other countries as well. And we are fortunate that this is the 6th webinar of Lit Web series and the first international webinar. We have amongst us Dr. Alok Kumar Srivastav, Regional Higher Education Officer, Lucknow. We have Professor Abhay Kumar, VC JNU Jaipur. We have Professor Shikha Vyas Durga Prasad from Johannesburg. We have Sri Rajendra Bhanavat ji, former IAS. Will soon Dr. Prasanjit will be joining us, Pro VC of Jaipur, one of the university from Jaipur. And I'm so glad that Professor Sanjeev Bhanavat, who is the pillar for all these 2 webinars of ours, he's a media stalwart, an academician, and a person who can guide anybody in any spirit in all the disciplines. Fortunate to be blessed by his skills and his expertise on all these subjects and get this opportunity to run this Lit Web series. To begin with today's webinar that we are going to talk upon good governance and citizens, I would first of all invite Professor Sanjeev Bhanavat to give the introductory remarks on this very topic. Followed with, will be welcoming all our eminent speakers to throw light upon this very important and the most necessary topic that we all should discuss and come out with vibrant conclusions and findings which might help us in future. So I would like to invite Professor Sanjeev Bhanavat for the introductory remark of this webinar.
धन्यवाद डॉक्टर उषा। आज हमारा बड़ा सुखद संयोग है कि लिट वेब के इस मंच पर जो ये चर्चा आयोजित की गई है, इसमें विभिन्न क्षेत्रों के अनुभवी और विशिष्ट विद्वान अध्येता हमारे साथ सम्मिलित हैं। आज जब भी कभी हम कोशिश करते हैं किसी आयोजन की, तो हमारा यह प्रयास होता है कि विभिन्न क्षेत्रों के जो अनुभवी और युवा साथी हैं वो हमारे साथ जुड़े और इस विचार मंथन की प्रक्रिया को हम निरंतर आगे बढ़ाते रहें। आधुनिक सोच के साथ साथ जो कुछ अनुभव विशिष्ट विद्वानों ने प्राप्त किया है अपने कार्यक्षेत्र में काम करते हुए, तो संयोग से हमारे साथ आज शैक्षिक प्रशासक हैं, प्रशासनिक सेवाओं के अधिकारी हैं और शिक्षा से जुड़े हुए भी वरिष्ठ शिक्षक हैं। लिट वेब, जैसा डॉक्टर उषा ने कहा कि हमने 2 श्रृंखलाएं पेंडेमिक के इस दौर में शुरू की थी, हालांकि एक अच्छी शुरुआत इस नए वर्ष के साथ हुई कि इस देश में पेंडेमिक का असर धीरे धीरे कम हो रहा है और उम्मीद करते हैं कि ये प्रवृत्ति निरंतर जारी रहेगी और अब हम फिर पहले की तरह फिजिकली मिलकर के इन सारे आयोजनों को चाय की चुस्कियों के बीच लंच और डिनर के साथ आयोजित करते रहेंगे और एक आत्मीय संवाद। लेकिन फिर भी मुझे लगता है कि ये आभासी जो मंच विकसित किया है, ये परंपरा भी कहीं ना कहीं चलती रहेगी समय और श्रम को बचाने की दृष्टि से। तो कम्युनिकेशन टुडे जो जयपुर से प्रकाशित हमारा मीडिया जर्नल है, जिसमें डॉक्टर उषा भी जुड़ी हुई हैं और डॉक्टर शिखा को भी याद होगा जब वो जयपुर में थी तो कुछ प्रतियां शुरू के दौर की मैंने उनको भेंट की थी, पूरी यात्रा की वो साक्षी रही हैं। कम्युनिकेशन टुडे के मंच पे शुरू की और अब लिट वेब के माध्यम से कम्युनिकेशन टुडे पे हम कर रहे हैं जो मीडिया से जुड़े हुए विषय हैं और लिट वेब पर साहित्य, समाज और संस्कृति से जुड़े हुए विषयों पर हम इन चर्चाओं को आयोजित करते हैं। आज के हमारे इस चर्चा में भारतीय प्रशासनिक सेवाओं में अपनी लंबी पारी जिन्होंने खेली है, राजेंद्र भानावत जी ने, वो हमारे साथ हैं। लगभग 38 साल की उनकी सेवा रही है। प्रशासनिक अधिकारी के साथ साथ मैंने तो उनकी कार्य पद्धति को बहुत निकटता से देखा है। वो एक लेखक, एक चिंतक और कवि हृदय भी रहे हैं। जिस तरह से उन्होंने सरकार में रहते हुए नवोन्मेषी योजनाओं की क्रियान्विति की है, अंतर्राष्ट्रीय स्तर पर भी उनको उसके लिए समादृत किया गया है, सम्मानित किया गया है। हमारे साथ 2 शैक्षिक प्रशासक जो कुलपति और राज्यों की शिक्षा नीति के निर्धारण के साथ साथ उसकी क्रियान्विति में बहुत ही तल्लीनता के साथ समर्पित भाव से जुड़े हुए हैं, प्रोफेसर आलोक कुमार श्रीवास्तव और प्रोफेसर अभय कुमार। आलोक कुमार श्रीवास्तव जी जहां प्राचार्य और क्षेत्रीय शिक्षा अधिकारी के रूप में प्रदेश की शैक्षिक नीतियों के क्रियान्वयन और विशेषकर उनको एक नई चुनौती जो है नई शिक्षा नीति के क्रियान्वयन की, उस दिशा में उनके सारे के सारे प्रयत्न प्रभावशाली हैं और उम्मीद करते हैं जिस तरह से इस शिक्षा नीति को आगे बढ़ाने के लिए उनके प्रयत्न होंगे उसमें सफलताएं मिलेंगी, क्योंकि नई पीढ़ी विशेषकर इस नई शिक्षा नीति में अपने एक भविष्य को बेहतर बनाने की उम्मीद में है। प्रोफेसर अभय कुमार जी यो मूलतः उत्तर प्रदेश के हैं, लेकिन संयोग से इस समय हमारे शहर जयपुर में एक निजी विश्वविद्यालय है, प्रताप विश्वविद्यालय, वहां कुलपति के रूप में उस विश्वविद्यालय में गुणवत्तापूर्ण शिक्षा की दिशा में महत्वपूर्ण कार्य कर रहे हैं। डॉक्टर शिखा, कई बार एक गौरव की अनुभूति होती है जब अपने साथ रहे हुए विद्यार्थी के रूप में, मुझे याद है 2000 के आसपास की बात होगी जब ये स्वयं मेरे पास आई थी और हमारे आयोजनों में से जुड़ने की इन्होंने इच्छा प्रकट की थी और मैंने कहा दूसरे ही दिन हमारी एक सेमिनार है उसमें जुड़ी है और उसके बाद कॉम्पेयरिंग के लिए मैंने उनको बुलाया था और इनकी वही बातचीत से मालूम पड़ा इनकी बड़ी बहन तो मेरे साथ खूब डिबेट बोली हुई है, तो एक तरह से पारिवारिक संपर्क और सानिध्य भी मिला। जयपुर में रहते हुए इनकी प्रकाशन यात्रा के साथ भी मैं जुड़ा। इन्होंने भी जिस तरह से अपने शोध अनुसंधान को आगे बढ़ाया और अब एक अंतर्राष्ट्रीय स्तर पर सोशल मीडिया को मुझे लगता है क्रेडिट देंगे, जो फिर इनसे जुड़ाव होता है। अनायास 5-7 दिन पहले बात हुई और मुझे लगा क्योंकि स्वयं इसी क्षेत्र में काम कर रही हैं तो इनको भी सुनने का अवसर मिले और हमारी ये बातचीत को हम एक अंतर्राष्ट्रीय स्वरूप दे पाए। डॉक्टर प्रसन्नजीत शायद जुड़ेंगे कुछ देर बाद हमसे, जो जयपुर की ही एक और प्रमुख निजी विश्वविद्यालय जयपुर नेशनल यूनिवर्सिटी, वह पूर्व वाइस चांसलर के रूप में उस विश्वविद्यालय की विविध आयामी गतिविधियों को एक नई दिशा देने के लिए प्रयत्नशील है। वस्तुतः आज का विषय जो हमने रखा, जब मेरी उषा से बात हो रही थी तो हमें कुछ लगा कि कुछ समसामयिक विषयों पर बातचीत करें। फिर भानावत जी के साथ मैंने बातचीत की तो हमें लगा गुड गवर्नेंस और सिटीजन, क्योंकि आज जिस दौर में हम हैं वहां मुझे लगता है ये ज्वलंत मुद्दा है। 90 के दशक में गुड गवर्नेंस के इस कॉन्सेप्ट को अंतर्राष्ट्रीय स्तर पर कहीं चर्चा की गई, यूएनओ ने भी इस पर काफी बातचीत की। शासन हर देश में होता है, चाहे वो लोकतांत्रिक है चाहे तानाशाही व्यवस्था है, जिस भी व्यवस्था, चाहे हम उस राज व्यवस्था में रहे हों, उस शासन के साथ एक शब्द जुड़ गया सु, अर्थात एक प्रभावी शासन कैसे संचालित कर सके, जहां जनता को एक विधि के शासन में रहने का अवसर मिले, जहां उसकी शिकायतों, उसकी पीड़ा, उसकी व्यथा को प्रशासनिक मशीनरी तुरंत उस पर कार्य कर सके, उसके समाधान के लिए प्रयत्नशील हो सके। कहीं हम उस सिस्टम के अंदर अकाउंटेबिलिटी या उत्तरदायित्व की भावना को विकसित कर सकें, जो हमारी नई शिक्षा नीति का एक मूल है कि टीचर्स अब तक जो करते रहे, लेकिन आने वाले दौर में उनको अकाउंटेबल बनाया जाएगा, और अकाउंटेबल नहीं होते हैं तो उनके प्रमोशन के रास्ते बंद हो सकते हैं। तो एक पूरे सिस्टम के लिए व्यापक रूप से हम बात करते हैं, तो मुझे लगता है कि उत्तरदायित्व की भावना की बात करते हैं। एक ऐसी सशक्त न्यायपालिका हो। हमारे यहाँ कोशिश होती है चीजों को टालने की, समय पर निर्णय नहीं करने की। तो ये बहुत सारी चीजें हैं कि हम उस दौर में भ्रष्टाचार उन्मूलन वाली बात है, कैसी भ्रष्टाचार मुक्त व्यवस्था में हम जी सकें। ट्रांसपेरेंसी इंटरनेशनल की रिपोर्ट्स आप देखिए गत वर्ष की, उसमें हिंदुस्तान 180 देशों में 80वें नंबर पर है। इतना बड़ा देश, इतनी बड़ी ताकत, इतना युवा भारत जिसे हम कहते हैं, इस देश का युवा अपने सपने संजोए हुए आगे बढ़ने के लिए प्रयत्नशील है, जिसने विभिन्न क्षेत्रों में अपनी एक पहचान बनाई है। और बहुत पीछे न जाए, कल ही जिस तरह से ऑस्ट्रेलिया में हमारी इस युवा टीम ने, अनुभवहीन टीम ने 150 साल में एक नया इतिहास रचा, ये इस बात का संकेत है कि इस देश का युवा, उसमें एक सामर्थ्य है, उसमें ताकत है, वो एक सपना लेकर के आया है। हमारी जो व्यवस्था है किस प्रकार उनके सपनों को साकार करने में सहभागी बन सकती है, कैसा शासन के जो अलग अलग पक्ष हैं। आप सभी का, चूंकि जैसा मैंने कहा कि बहुत बड़ा अनुभव रहा है, मानवजी तो शिक्षा में रहे, लिटरेसी में आपने काम किया, हमारे विश्वविद्यालय के रजिस्ट्रार रहे, ओएसडी के रूप में भी दो पारिया विश्वविद्यालय में इनकी रही। शिक्षा को आपने भी बहुत निकटता से देखा। आप लोग क्या सोचते हैं, क्या वो चुनौतियां हैं, जनता की क्या अपेक्षाएं हैं? अब तो ये बात की जाती है कि हम जब शपथ दिलाते हैं मंत्रियों को, प्रधानमंत्री को, मुख्यमंत्रियों को, हम गोपनीयता की शपथ दिलाते हैं। क्या हम इसमें परिवर्तन नहीं कर सकते? गोपनीयता की क्यों, पारदर्शिता की शपथ दिलानी चाहिए। जनता को जानने का अधिकार होना चाहिए, कोई निर्णय लिया तो क्यों लिया, नहीं लिया तो क्यों नहीं लिया। राष्ट्र की सुरक्षा जैसे प्रश्नों को हम अलग कर सकते हैं। बाय एंड लार्ज इस जन सहभागिता कैसे स्थापित होगी? शायद यही कारण था कि उस जन दबाव के आगे सरकार एक दौर में झुकती है और राइट टू इंफॉर्मेशन जैसे कानून को लागू करना पड़ा। अब सूचना तक हमारा एक्सेस है, तो हम चाहेंगे कि इस महत्वपूर्ण विषय पर हमारे जो अनुभवी विद्वान और विदुषियां यहाँ उपस्थित हैं, वो कहीं विचार मंथन कर सकें। जैसा कि हमारी परंपरा है, समय की बहुत सारे मित्रों के साथ सीमाएं होती हैं, लगभग 100 के आसपास रजिस्ट्रेशन इस वेबिनार के लिए हो चुके हैं। जो लोग रजिस्टर्ड हुए हैं और हमारे डिफरेंट सोशल मीडिया प्लेटफॉर्म पर हम इस पूरी प्रोसीडिंग्स को रिकॉर्ड कर रहे हैं, और उन सोशल मीडिया प्लेटफॉर्म्स के माध्यम से, और जो भी लोग रजिस्टर्ड हुए हैं, भले ही वो जुड़ पाए या नहीं जुड़ पाए, उन सबके जो हमारे पास ईमेल हैं, उस पर हम उनको इसके जो वीडियोस हैं जो हमने रिकॉर्ड किया है वो वहां तक भेजेंगे, ताकि ये चर्चा यहीं तक नहीं सिमट जाए। और मुझे लगता है कि ये जो वर्चुअल माध्यम है, इसका एक बहुत बड़ा लाभ ये हुआ है कि हम एक बहुत बड़े समाज तक भौगोलिक दूरियों को तोड़ते हुए दुनिया के उस हिस्से में पहुंच सकने के लिए सक्षम है, जहां हमारी भाषा को जानने वाला, समझने वाला, उस पर चिंतन मनन करने वाला बैठा हुआ है। मैं एक बार फिर इस लिटवेब के मंच पर आप सभी का स्वागत, अभिनंदन करता हूं, इस उम्मीद में कि ये चर्चा एक वैचारिक दृष्टि से सफल और सार्थक होगी। इन चर्चाओं की कोई अंतिम निर्णय निकलने की ना अपेक्षा है, ना संभव है। यह एक तरह से विचारों का निवेश है, जो कहीं ना कहीं सतत रूप से जारी रहता है, और हम समाज की उस मानसिकता को, उसकी मनस्थिति को परिवर्तित करने के लिए, कहीं उसे चिंतनशील बनाने के लिए, इस बौद्धिक वर्ग के प्रतिनिधि के रूप में अपनी एक भूमिका को निभाने का विनम्र प्रयास करते हैं। इन्हीं शब्दों के बाद मैं डॉक्टर उषा से अनुरोध करूंगा कि आगे की कार्रवाई का संचालन करें। डॉक्टर उषा।
Thank you so much, sir. It was a wonderful explanation about the entire scenario that we are going to talk about.
आवाज थोड़ी कम आ रही है आपकी, तो मतलब संजीव जी की भी और आपकी भी आवाज थोड़ी सी, पता नहीं ये कुछ माइक के पास बोले तो थोड़ा सा आवाज ठीक आएगी।
Yeah, thank you so much, Professor Bhanavat. राजेंद्र सर, आप सुन पा रहे हैं? अब इज इट ऑडिबल? इज इट क्लियर?
ऑडिबल तो है, स्लाइटली लो वॉल्यूम, आई डोंट नो, चलिए कैरी ऑन।
It was fabulous introductory remark, because the moment sir talked about the transparency, yeah, of course, why are we talking about confidentiality? Why are we not talking about transparency? Of course, this is the most important thing that we need, in not only in this scenario, but everywhere. Even if we talk about a family unit, there also, in professional environments also, everywhere, the most important thing that is to be worked upon and is to be catered is the transparency. If the transparency will be there with the things, probably everything will take a wonderful shape. We have all our eminent speakers amongst us. First of all, I would like to welcome Professor Alok Kumar Srivastav for his delightful talk. Professor Srivastav is presently working as Regional Higher Education Officer, Lucknow, providing the much needed leadership and initiative to the 16 districts of Lucknow, Ayodhya, and Devi Patan divisions. Additionally, he is holding charge of Principal of Government Degree College, Hasor, Barabanki, and MBP Government PG College, Lucknow. He has worked and served in various capacities in the education system, Department of Higher Education, Government of Uttar Pradesh. Besides teaching botany and being principal of government degree colleges, he has served in capacity of Deputy Director, Rashtriya Uchitar Shiksha Abhiyan, RUSA, State Nodal Officer, All India Survey on Higher Education, ASH, AISHE, Nodal Officer of State of UP for Sustainable Development Goal number 4 and GIS Mapping of Higher Education Institutions, Coordinator SLQAC and Convener of High Level Committee for PPP in Higher Education. He has credit of being organizer of several seminars, publishing international research papers and edited volumes. So here is the first speaker amongst us, the most eminent one from this higher education that I could say. And I welcome you, sir, for your talk.
A very good evening to one and all. At the outset, I must congratulate the organizers for selecting such pertinent topic, good governance and citizens. I extend a warm and cordial welcome to all learned speakers and participants, and I am sure that recommendations after this webinar will be of much value for policymakers. In my opinion, good governance is a measure of how public institutions conduct public affairs and manage public resources. It is the process of decision making and the process of which decisions are being implemented. United Nations is playing an increasing role in good governance, and according to former UN Secretary General Mr. Kofi Annan, good governance is ensuring respect for human rights and the rule of law, strengthening democracy, promoting transparency and capacity in public administration. And as he states that good governance is the most important factor in eradicating poverty and promoting development. United Nations take 8 principles in implementing this good governance. First, participation of people, rule of law, legal framework, consensus-oriented, equity and inclusiveness, effectiveness and efficiency, accountability of government institutions, private sectors and civil society, transparency, it means information should be accessible to the public and should be understandable and monitored, and lastly, responsiveness. This World Bank measures this worldwide governance indicators, and they have made 6 points to govern all these indicators, which include the measurement, bias and accountability, political stability, lack of violence, government effectiveness, regulatory quality and rule of law, and control of corruption. As far as India is concerned, the economic survey of 2016-17 brought out by the Government of India at many instances identified that good governance is a critical factor for achieving equality, convergence, productiveness of resources, efficient public service delivery. Government of India recommended to develop a comprehensive index, and that is called Good Governance Index, and they include in this political, legal, administrative, economic, social, environmental, and other essential criteria. Since government carry out schemes with a particular goal, like the provision of public goods to its citizen, there is no better way to think about good governance other than demanded by citizens, like security, health, education, water, enforcement of contracts, protection of property, protection of environment, and ability to vote and get paid fair wages. Since I am involved in this higher education system of the state, I would like to share some of my opinion or views. This sector of education is of great significance from the viewpoint of human development and sustainability of social and economic progress. The three levels of education, primary, secondary, and tertiary, have their distinctive relative contribution in the growth process of the country. But level of higher education assumes greater significance in the view of modern super specialization and information technology revolution. The challenges are manifold in the direction of the expansion in view of increasing enrollment ratio, quality improvement in relation to international standards. By 2030, India will be amongst the youngest nation in the world with nearly 140 million population in the college-going age group. Education lays foundation for sustainable and inclusive development. The future of the citizen depends on their educational input, and India has made great strides in the field of education. The indicators which have been identified for good governance mostly focus on learning outcomes like quality of education, retention rate, and in addition, indicators like enrollment ratio, gender parity, skill training, and placement ratio are also included. Presently, 6 indicators have been included in Good Governance Index in this sector. Over the years, government has taken steps to improve the access, equity, and quality of education. Initiatives of the central government like Sarv Shiksha Abhiyan, Rashtriya Madhyamik Shiksha Abhiyan, Rashtriya Uchtar Shiksha Abhiyan, Deen Dayal Upadhyay Gramin Kaushal Yojana, Digital India, Skill India, these initiatives have been started. In order to capture the scope of education, indicators like gender parity index and enrollment rate of disadvantaged groups has also been included from time to time. But the cycle of education completes only after skill training and placement of employment of the citizen. In order to measure the effectiveness of this education system, these parameters are also taken into consideration while formulating the indicators of the Good Governance Index. Most of the indicators have been identified, but I propose some of the additional indicators which should be taken by the government for detecting this or measurement of this Good Governance Index, especially in human resource field. Pass out percentage of undergraduate and postgraduate level, percentage of universities in which curriculum is revised at least once in the last 3 years, percentage of teachers having publication of at least one paper per year in the last 5 years, percentage of teachers having PhD degree, ratio of eligible faculty to guide PhD students, percentage of students who take admission in higher education institution to the number of students who have passed class 12th separately for boys and girls, dropout rate at UG and PG level, ratio of enrollment of boys and girls at every level, UG level, PG level, PhD level, and especially in socially disadvantaged groups, percentage of students who went for skill training after 12th class, percentage of students who has completed skill courses, percentage of students who had got placement after skill training, percentage of students who got placement after graduation, and definitely after post-graduation and later on. These indicators, if you include in the good governance index of higher education institutions, definitely we will get some better output. As far as the state of Uttar Pradesh is concerned, the state has set priorities of quality assurance, access and equity, infrastructure development, and capacity building of student and faculty members. The plan includes goals to impart, disseminate and advance knowledge by quality and innovative teaching in different branches of learning, to support horizontal expansion and vertical growth of universities and colleges through infrastructure development and opening of new courses, to ensure welfare of state, faculty and staff, extend opportunities for their capacity building and professional development, and to produce skilled human resource which are employable, socially sensitive, responsible and dedicated citizens of the country. And I am sure with these initiatives, the state will not only produce bright graduates for export, but can also support sophisticated research in a number of scientific fields and produce at least some of the knowledge and technology needed for expanding economy. I thank organizers for inviting me for this webinar. Thank you all.
Thank you so much, sir, for this elaborative talk, which explained all the things that are being considered to upgrade the higher education system. And definitely with all the intellectuals working out there for national education policy, each one of is definitely looking for something much more better than what we are having at present. Undoubtedly, we are doing great at present also, but then of course we need many more things to be considered so that we can develop this education system in the right direction and appropriately. So it was a wonderful information that you have delivered in a point-wise capacity. Thank you so much, sir, for being here with us and sharing all the valuable facts and information with us. Thank you so much, sir, once again. With this, I would like to call upon Professor Shikha Vyas Durga Prasad, Professor, School of Public Management Governance and Public Policy at University of Johannesburg, South Africa. She has the experience of more than 20 years of teaching in various universities in India and South Africa. Her research interests are in public policy, gender issues, and in municipal governance. She has presented research findings and international conferences worldwide. She has authored 2 books, editor of 3 books, Taylor and Francis Rutledge, publishers in New York, contributed chapters in books, and have published articles in national and international accredited journals. She serves as editor-in-chief, guest editor, associate editor, editorial board member, and reviewer to South Africa and international journals. She is a member of the International Advisory Board and international scientific committees to various conferences worldwide. She was a recipient of many awards for her academic excellence. She is ranked number 4 at the top 10 researchers list of the University of Business and Economics, University of Johannesburg, in terms of DHET credit contributions in 2017. She has published more than 55 articles in scientific journals also. So we are fortunate to have you, Professor Shikha, amongst us, and sure that we are going to listen to a very delightful talk by you as well. I welcome you, Dr. Shikha. Unmute yourself. Your mic is off.
Can you hear me?
Sure.
Thank you so much for the introduction. I appreciate. Professor Sanjeev Bhanawat, sir, thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to be part of the first international webinar of the web series of the Lit Web on good governance and citizens. When it comes to discussing what is good governance, we all know that theoretically, it means government that is transparent, accountable, honest, ethical, and so on. Contextually, and not hypothetically, every country needs to have a good governance. So the question is, do we have good governance in our country? Theoretically, again, yes. But the bigger question is, then what are the factors that hamper the implementation of good governance? This discussion is based on country-specific context because each country has its own social, economical, political, and also institutional challenges that require corrective measures in a specific context. So I'm going to discuss the notion of good governance in South Africa. I must admit that this task was delegated to me on a very short notice. So instead of reinventing the wheel and writing something anew, I decided to use the content that is already published. It was an interview in an Iraqi magazine, and I want to acknowledge the source. The article was published in 2019 by Mr. Farhad M. Hassan, who is editor-in-chief of a weekly Gulen magazine in Iraq. I cannot provide more details as a web link is not available. The message states the site cannot be reached. And this is a disadvantage of internet platforms or publications. So Professor Bhanawat, I see this could be the topic of your new webinar. So the major question is, if I need to discuss what are the fundamental obstacles that facing the endeavor of creating good governance in South Africa, then my response would be that the main obstacle is the political corruption, resulting in the misuse of power, authority, and position. And this scenario is complemented with the private use of public resources by public servants, favoritism, and nepotism in bureaucratic appointments. All these unethical elements hamper the institutionalization of good governance, not only in South Africa, but in every country where there is a lack of political transparency, weak judicial system, and high levels of bureaucracy. Then one may ask, okay, but then why South Africa has not been able to adequately address these obstacles? I think in general terms, there are two levels of obstacles that we can identify. The one exists at a personal level that include the personal greed and the lack of personal values, where there is always a desire to have more power, authority, resources, money, privileges, and a comfortable lifestyle. These desires force unethical-minded people to manifest their intentions through bribery, financial misconduct, or the use of other resources that are professionally unacceptable. And the second level is professional, where there is a lack of compliance to observe code of conduct. Though there are anti-corruption measures in place, but the inadequate monitoring and evaluation of such measures can solve the problem in a long term. And this is to some extent is happening in South Africa, where the country is facing a lack of political will to combat corruption. There are a lot of politicians who are already exposed by media that have been involved in some form of corruption and maladministration. But the process to investigate is lengthy, and there could be a so-called collective support for brotherhood in corruption. So no one wants to expose other, as it will be an exposure to own self. Now it is obvious from my responses that fighting corruption is inextricably intertwined with good governance. Is that correct? I say yes. Obviously, in order to cut the corruption completely, our elected representatives need to transform their thought patterns. And instead of just focusing on personal agenda, they need to start thinking about collective agenda regarding serving people and benefiting people with acceptable standards of services. The good governance requires using the power to benefit those people who have entrusted their trust in their chosen representatives, and not about misusing power to benefit the few who are their favorites. Before you ask to what extent the failure in fighting corruption has damaged the trust between the government and its citizens, and this is the main theme of today's webinar, so let me answer proactively. The national election statistics of 2019 in South Africa has already shown a paradigm shift in people's loyalty towards their preferred political parties. This diversion of thoughts is an evidence that the criteria of trust is questionable. In the past, the only criteria was the historical emotional attachment that was connecting people to the ideology of their preferred political party. But now, the public opinions have matured with time, and the educated youth have beginning to resonate themselves with different ideologies that incorporate issues of employment, gender equality, economic sustainability, to emphasize a few. When a political party do not deliver these timely evolved concerns, then the trust gets weakened. It can be added that it is not the trust that is getting lost, but also the people's hard-earning money is getting misused to the several commissions of inquiries that are established to investigate corruption. Soon, people will beginning to lose patience as the outcomes of these commissions of inquiries have no certainty of timeline to reach at conclusions. If you ask me, now you are a citizen of South Africa, what is your opinion if it is asked that establishing and upholding the rule of law is one of the key components of good governance? So to what extent South Africa has been able to take serious steps in this regard? Then I say, actually measures are there in terms of instituting anti-corruption hotline and commissions of inquiries are established. The media is playing a significant role in exposing the corrupt behavior and acts of people who are involved in any form of misconduct. High profile, prolific, and elite people are now facing charges. So there are judicial legal platforms to correct the unethical deeds with justifiable consequences. However, these measures require effective monitoring and evaluation. Media needs to be involved and the public needs to be vigilant as well. So what should and could be done for rectifying this situation? I suggest that actually this requires a collective effort. People need to raise voices for their rights. Media needs to expose the wrongs, and judiciary needs to embrace a non-negotiable attitude towards ensuring the effective implementation of the rule of law. And obviously, at the institutional level, corrective measures and compliance must be in place. It is also important to assess how other countries are implementing good governance. For example, on the corruption index, there are countries, they are in better situation for meeting the criteria of good governance, such as Denmark and New Zealand, who are the least corrupt countries in the world. In African context, Botswana is practicing good governance by establishing anti-corruption agencies and instituting monitoring and evaluation to assess the effectiveness of these agencies. But on the other hand, Zimbabwe is a disaster, facing economical dysfunctional governance, where failed political leadership and bureaucratic policy execution complement each other, causing unintended consequences. I just want to add that maladministration or bad governance exists everywhere in a meso, micro, or macro form. So there is no country that is considered as a completely clean and free from corruption. We therefore need good governance, means there are measures in place to correct the wrong. What required is to instill an ethical culture where role players are encouraged to take responsibility for their decisions. We need to institute ethics management, laying down ethical codes. It is important to provide ethics training, informing politicians and bureaucrats of all the policies, all the methods, and ethical codes. We need ethics strategy to foster an ethical and good governance. We need ethics program requires politicians and public servants to commit to certain behavior and attitudes. We need to implement ethics audit to evaluate the ethical status and ethical programs offered by the ministries and government departments. At the end, I just want to say, at a country level, good governance is not enough. We need good enough governance. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Shikha. That was a wonderful talk being delivered by you, talking about all the challenges that are being encountered there in Africa, along with the neighbor countries. Just a small request from Jasim Ahmed. Can you please stop sharing your screen? I would request you, Jasim Ahmed, kindly stop sharing your screen here. And that was absolutely right, Professor Shikha, that you talked about the ethical training. That is must. If that can be inculcated in each and every person from the very beginning, not only talking about the higher education, but if we talk about basics and at every professional level also, that will help definitely to support the governance and make it real good governance. Thank you so much for the valuable insights that you have shared here with us. Jasim Ahmed ji, once again, I'm requesting you to kindly stop sharing your screen. Otherwise, I'll have to ... Just give me a second. I can see there in the people. Okay. Okay.
Okay. Can you not remove? Yeah. Okay. Right. Good.
Okay. Thank you so much, Professor Shikha. There was a little interruption in between. Now, proceeding further, I would like to welcome the next eminent speaker of ours, Professor Abhay Kumar.
Dr. Usha, let's make the introduction short.
Sure, sir. Definitely, sir. Definitely. Professor Abhay Kumar is student of management. He has a wonderful academic experience of approx 4 decades, inclusive of administrative experience as well. He has also been an entrepreneur for a few years and had worked in the industry for over 16 years as senior manager personnel. With his versatile interests, he possesses sound knowledge and interest in the field of marketing management, strategy being his forte. His research domain is decorated with good number of research papers published in national and international journals. He has also been the principal investigator of government-sponsored projects. He has organized and chaired several national and international conferences, seminars, workshops, symposiums. He's an active member of numerous higher education bodies. He's also on the advisory board of many corporate organizations and NGOs. He's honored by various national and international institutions for his meritorious contribution in his field. Professor Abhay Kumar is presently Vice Chancellor of Pratap University, Jaipur, Rajasthan. So I could make this much only short. Thank you so much. And I welcome you once again for your talk.
Thank you so much, Dr. Usha. My sincere thanks and a very good evening to Dr. Sanjeev Bhanawat and yourself for having given me the opportunity to be here on this platform today. I've been waiting since long when I would be invited, but at last. So thanks to all the distinguished speakers and participants here today, Dr. Alok, Professor Rajendra Bhanawat ji, Dr. Shikha, maybe Dr. Prasanjit who is joining, plus a plethora of well-known attendees here today as participants. So thank you so much. Well, wonderful topic, governance and good governance and citizens. As Dr. Alok had said, that governance is the process of decision making and the process by which decisions are implemented. Just to add, also not implemented. So when we go further, sir, the World Bank in one of its report in 1992 had said the definition of good governance, the defining it as the manner in which power is exercised in the management of a country's economic and social resources for development. Though in particular, I would like to stretch good governance not only from the government's point of view, but at every level and every hierarchy and every sector of the country. The social fabric, the political fabric, the economic setup, everything. Good governance is needed everywhere if we want to take the country forward on a desired trajectory of growth. So, of course, there are so many characteristics of good government, as pointed out earlier. The most important, I feel, is that good governance should not be limited to a particular government being in place. That means whatever steps we are taking right now should be able to help the future needs of the society. That is what, in my opinions, is a good governance. If I am vice chancellor of a university right now, I should not look after what good is happening and what I can deliver at present. There must be left something for the legacy, whether it is pollution control in the country, whether it is say thinking about how to remove plastic use. All these things have to be left for the future generations, and that is what I feel good governance should be for. Now, what are the references? I'm not talking about either religion, caste, creed, or anything, but from our culture, I can derive. Bhagavad Gita also provided numerous cues for good governance, leadership, dutifulness, self realization, which are now reintegrated in this modern context. So, we must draw out from our past culture, which has been very rich. Even in Kautilya's Arthashastra, in the second, maybe or the third century BC, the welfare of the people was considered paramount in the role of any king. Even Mahatma Gandhi, a father of nation, emphasized Suraj, which essentially means good governance. So we all know that good governance is very imperative for us, whether it is any country in the world. And the pandemic, the COVID-19 pandemic, has amply reflected the fact what is the need of good governance and how we have coped up to the situation and lived up to it and managed it. This is what good governance means. It is not only governance by the government. It is governance and the role of a good governance by the government, the political leaders, as well as citizens. As citizens, sometimes we tend to think only about our rights. No, we have to think about our duties. We are accountable to the country, not only to the government, but to the country as a whole, to the globe as a whole, to the world as a whole. What role have we played till now? Let's introspect and think what good governance should actually incorporate. Now, if I talk about India specific, as Dr. Shikha had talked about South Africa specific, so I would like to say that good governance in India has to some extent been improvised in the past few years, like Right to Information Act, where transparency in receiving information has somehow been enhanced as compared to the past. Then e-governance, proactive governance and timely implementation, Pragati, the Digital India program. The Honorable Prime Minister has been stressing on digitization in the past few years. What we focus on right now is minimum government and maximum governance. That means the government should not be too large in size, but governance should be more than enough. This is what probably one of the speakers also said. We have had many legal reforms in the country. The central government has scrapped nearly 1,500 obsolete rules and laws in the past to ensure transparency and improve efficiency in the governance. Well, there are so many things to talk about. Ease of doing business. Well, the government has launched the Make in India initiative. This is also good governance. Because, during the pandemic, when we initiated, I was in one of the webinars in which a very eminent bureaucrat was there. So when we talked about, say, PPE kits, we used to think not a single was being manufactured in the country at that time. Almost not a single. Every single PPE kit and ventilator being imported from one country we know about. Then what happened? In the next 1.5 to 2 months time, at the maximum, we used to manufacture 4 lakh PPE kits every month. Now, how could that happen? That means the basic tenets of doing things are there with us. The empathy which we exhibited towards the have-nots, towards the migrant laborers, that also was amply reflected the fact that good governance by the government and participation by the citizens are there in the country. Howsoever, we have to streamline things a bit. Decentralization. Now, the Centralized Planning Commission was also abolished, replacing it with the Niti Aayog. So this is how say things are going upon. Police reforms went forward. In 2015, a Model Police Act was passed. Then there's so many things like the Good Governance Index, which Dr. Alok talked about earlier, was launched on the occasion of the Good Governance Day on the 25th of December, if I remember, 2019. Now, the Good Government Index is a uniform tool across states to assess the status of governance and impact of various interventions which are taken up, say, by the state government, the union territories, and whatnot. Means so many stakeholders are there. Now, the objective of Good Governance Index was to provide say, quantifiable data to compare the state of governance in all the states and union territories, to enable them also to formulate and implement, say, suitable strategies by, say, improving governance and shift to result-oriented approaches. It was not there. I'll just tell you before, probably at the later part of my, say, submission, what the Prime Minister has talked about. But filhal, let's talk about challenges in good governance as we just enunciated. Criminalization of politics. Well, everyone knows that. If you permit me to say so, being a bureaucrat, Professor Rajendra, that according to the Association of Democratic Reforms, 43% of the members of Parliament of Lok Sabha 2019 are facing criminal charges. It is 26% increase as compared to 2014, just 5 years back. Now, if this is going to happen, what impact is it going to have on the mental state of the citizens of the country? Now, of course, corruption is everywhere. We know that human greed is, of course, a driver of corruption. But the enforcement system should also be in place. That means justice should be delayed. It is said justice is delayed and should not be denied. Of course, it should not be denied. But an inordinate delay in justice also denies justice, in my opinion. So we should work on it somehow or the other. There's so many thousands of cases lying in the courts of India. People are languishing in jails. So good governance does not, in fact, should have all those aspects here in the country. Now, gender disparity. Now, Swami Vivekananda had once said, if I remember, that it is impossible to think about the welfare of the world unless the condition of women is improved. Now, it is impossible for a bird to fly only on one wing. We have two wings. We have to have, say, equitable distribution of every resource for both the wings for a balanced flight. Now, this is what is going to happen. In the country, women empowerment has now taken a force. I'll tell you one more thing. Whatever corruption may be, whatever other negatives may be, growing incidence of violence as a challenge to, say, good governance, whatever it may be, delaying justice as I talked about. But one thing is for there, the social media has become so strong that even a small lapse on the part of any individual is flashed through the social media. And the citizen in the rural setup also immediately goes to know about it. This has advantages as well as disadvantages. Sometimes the facts are so distorted and blown over that we are made to believe something which is not there. So the opinion of, say, conflicting parties also affect good governance in the social media. Social media has to be made responsible. Whether it is television, whether it is as say WhatsApp groups, they also have somehow to be made responsible. Now, the centralization of administrative system. Of course, there is a need to reformulate our national strategy to accord primacy to the Gandhian principle of Antyodaya to restore good governance. This is my personal viewpoint, sir. I hope you will agree with me. Probity in governance. When we talk about probity, we say that it is a quality of strong moral principles. It includes having integrity, uprightness, and honesty. Now, it is not just being incorruptible and honest, but we must always include adherence to a code of ethics. What is not being taught till now in the schools? Because the schools are the inputs for higher education sectors in India or everywhere. So these things should be taught at school. An ethical code should be developed at the school level. even the Prime Minister has said the success of democracy is impossible without the participation of the people. Well, participation of the people is necessary, but of course, when we discuss things, the discussion part should be translated into doing it. And that is sometimes what has happened at the various political platforms. If you permit me to say that I have been in various webinars, especially during the lockdown, say a good number of webinars in which political, educationists, politicians, bureaucrats, they were all there on the platform. I went through the views. Everyone is desirous of having good governance, but where is the impediment then? The impediment, in my opinion, is in the mindset. Sometimes we have a will to do things, but then the mindset is, why should I do it? I have seen it in academics also. I'll give you a small example, sir. The example is that in the last university where I was the vice chancellor, I took an initiative that let's pool our resources. We all have strengths. Private university especially. Maybe my school of pharmacy is the best in the region. Maybe your school of management is the best. Let's pool our resources. So initially I had good resistance to it. But as vice chancellor and a faculty of management, I started taking classes of different students of different universities as an initiative. I had responses. 5 universities came together and we pooled our resources in terms of videos and everything. This is exactly what the Honorable Prime Minister had posted on LinkedIn about 2-3 months back. He talked about AEIOU, the 5 vowels of a new normal. He said that once the new normals are established, these are the 5 vowels which will be essential for business, for ethics, for citizens, for government. They are AEIU, just as it is in English language. A for adaptability. We must adapt ourselves to situations, learn to adapt ourselves. We should not be rigid. E means efficiency. Efficiency should not be measured by the number of hours put. It should be directly related to productivity. Then he said about I, inclusivity. We should always include inclusivity for all the have-nots, for everyone. O, opportunity for everyone. U, universalism. That means let's not remain as isolated islands of excellence. This is what I learned from that post when I initiated that with the different universities. We are global citizens. During the pandemic didn't strike anyone looking at the color, creed, society, religion, or anything. It struck everyone equitably. So we should always think of that. Now, at the last, I think, Dr. Usha, just tell me when my time is going to finish off. So I'll take another 5 minutes or 2 minutes if you permit me.
So you can conclude, but of course we are enjoying, so you can take your time to conclude it.
No, I'll just conclude it. I'll just say a few sentences because being an academician, I would talk about the new education policy, which has come after 34 long years of awaiting it.
Sure,
Now,
sir.
this new education policy also has good governance tenets in it. What are the tenets? We have talked about 5, say 10+2 system has been modified to school system has been modified. Okay. Now why? The regional languages have been introduced till standard 5. Maybe even till 8th it is desired. We talk about multiple entry and exit options in higher education. We talk about the HECI having been formed. Now all these are tenets of good governance. But the fact would be whether we would be able to implement this policy properly or not. I am really apprehensive about how and when it is to be implemented, and whether all the stakeholders, should not be left upon the government to implement it. Every faculty member, every student, every parent, every educational institution, even industry has to come together if this policy has to be implemented properly. And I've been speaking with industry leaders also, corporate leaders also. I've been in the industry for 16 years or so, as I told you. So we've been discussing how to go about it. Let's not be mutually exclusive. Let's come together. The era which is now we are looking forward to is of collaboration, coexistence. We cannot live alone. We cannot live in isolated islands of excellence, as I said so. So good governance and citizen, we have to look forward of how to do it. Thank you so much, Dr. Usha.
Thank you so much, sir. Very catching point that I really got, it developed that those vibrations, that was, so many things are there. But the thing is that how are we going to implement? How are we going to execute it? And what? Why is it that we cannot think that I shall do it? Why are we looking forward for others? Why is it not that I, you, and the other one? If we all will collaborate together and do the things in the needed capacity, then the governance can become good. Of course, there are so many things. You have elaborated the entire thing, talked about decentralization, talked about the participation of citizens, talked about reforms of government. You talked about the effective policy that has been provided by the government. But the thing is that who they can provide you, but the thing is that who is going to join hands together to make it work? If we people are not going to do that, how it will get executed? And if it is not getting executed, we'll keep on discussing this, that the governance had to become good, and it is bad, or it is, moderate or whatever. So that was, you had captured all the points, inclusive of gender equality, then women empowerment. All those points made the entire talk so relevant. Of course, you had touched the national education policy also. We are coming up with so many vibrant measurements that we should take care of. But then again, the question is that if I am ready to implement it from within, and of course in the close vicinity, if that thing is going to happen, definitely we'll have that good governance without begging for it, and without asking that why isn't it happening, and all the questions always. Thank you so much, Professor Abhay. It was marvelous to listen to you. Now I would like to call upon our former IAS Rajendra Bhanawat ji. He has been an active member of other webinars of our series as well, and been always a kind of real guide to us. So former IAS Sir has contributed best of his services in various departments of Indian Administrative Services for good 36 years. Most emphasized, it can be stated that he has dealt in the fields of tourism and literacy in such an effective manner that various awards at international level came to his credit. He has widely traveled to more than 30 countries and is known as a poet and a writer as well. That means he has got a real soft heart within. So we'll be very fortunate to listen to you, sir. And one of his poetry collection has got published, and you are most active on writing on various contemporary topics in Dainik Rajdoot as well. So fortunate to have you amongst us here. I welcome you, Rajendra Bhanawat, sir, former IAS.
Thank you, Usha ji. I hope you are able to hear me.
Yeah.
Okay. Usha ji, Sanjeev ji, thanks for making me a part of this discussion today. Alok ji, Shikha, Abhay Kumar ji have all dwelt into various aspects of good governance in our country. And I think there can be many, and it's good that I'm the only practicing administrators among all the panelists today. Otherwise, all have given a very, but each one of us is a citizen also. Those who spoke, they might not have been practicing administrators. Vice chancellors are certainly administrators, but yes, but so far as we are all citizens of the country. So when I speak to you today, friends, in this afternoon or evening, say, for Shikha, it must be afternoon. For us, all of us here, this is evening. So when we are talking about this thing, I'll talk about this subject from 2 points of view. I have been a practicing administrator, and the government has been kind enough to transfer me 30 times in 38 years. So that has given me a whole range of experience. The tenure has ranged from 4 days to 4 years. So it has been a fairly good variation. And this is a subject, when Sanjeev ji and I was talking, I thought I could speak for hours on this, because I've spent years. You said Usha 36, but to correct you, I've spent 38 years. So just for my minor correction. So what I'll do is I'll not go into the theoretical aspects of it. Whatever I have experienced, I'll share a few of these things which I've assimilated over a period of time, and maybe some of the questions which might come up later on, I'll try to do that. So when Sanjeev ji told me that you have to limit yourself to 10 minutes, I'll try to do that in 10 minutes, but whatever little I'll do, I'll just touch upon certain points, and then if the discussions are required and the time permits, and we can take questions and then go ahead with this. why do we talk about citizen and governance? Let me just first say this. Everybody has talked about what do we mean by this? Because when our country is governed by a book called the Constitution of India, and if each one of us who has read the Constitution, or if he has not, one must go through buy a copy today and do it. The preamble of the Constitution starts with 3 words: "We the people of India have given to ourselves in the various things and given to ourselves the constitution on this particular date that is in the end." So it is a constitution. We have given to ourselves this constitution. We means the people of India. So anything which is done in the country by the government or by any agency of the country, it has to make sure that it does something good for the people of the country. When I say people, it does not mean the MPs or the ministers or the chief ministers or the bureaucrats or each of them. When I say people, the last man in the last row, for whom there is no one to help. And if the good governance, I think my definition of good governance will be that if a governance is not able to help a person who is the most deprived, most vulnerable, most needy, and who has nobody to go to, he has no money to bribe anybody, who has no connections to get to the right place, and if he can be helped without harassment, without being asked to come to the office 10 times and every time being told that the Saab is not in the office, come tomorrow. If it is a bureaucrat, the Saab is in the bathroom. If it is an engineer, the Saab is on the site. So if these are the types of answers which a common man gets, then I think the question of good governance needs to be discussed and needs to be addressed. What do we mean by this? So first point that I want to make is that we need to make governance easy for the people. When I say easy means ease of living. Government has been talking about, the Prime Minister and the Government of India and other governments have generally been talking about the ease of doing business. Ease of doing business is good, but what is more needed in my opinion is in a country like India where 2/3 of the population just barely meets the 2 meals a day, 2 square meals a day. So for them, the ease of living is important. When I need a copy, as a villager, if I need a copy of a revenue record and when I go to the Patwari, am I able to get it instantly? If I need my ration in time, do I get it in time? If my son is to be admitted to a college, can I do it without connections and without getting a telephone call from somebody? Or if a lady wants to go into the night somewhere in the town, is she scared, or can she go confidently without being apprehensive of being molested or being raped sometimes, that we see it every now and then. So that these are the types of questions, and if the particular project is being started, does it get completed in time? So anything which is done in the name of the public, of the people of the country, I think we do need to ask the question whether what we are saying, are we doing it or not? So the governance made easy, that's what I'm saying. Governance made easy would mean that demystify the governance. Presently, for the common man, he does not know. Even the person who has been in the government for years would not know how a thing gets done in the government. So when we say good governance, each person in the country needs to know this is the way the thing would be done. If the documents are required, he should be clear. Each one should be clear that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If these 5 documents are there, his work will be done by such and such time on such and such date. If any of these documents is missing, and even if the chief minister tells the person to do it, it will not be done. If the treatment is uniform, I think the person can be assured of no harassment, no problem, and no bribery. Second thing is, when I said demystification is needed also to remove this tribe that is called the middleman, agent, dalal, tout, by whatever name you call him. I think in the service provider, sometimes the name given is the service provider. Why do we need an agent between the particular government department and the citizen? We need it because the common citizen does not know how the things get done. And if that the treatment to different types of citizens is different, then the question arises, where is the good governance? So according to me, having spent some time in the government, good governance would mean that you give uniform treatment to everybody. You have the system of first come, first serve, and also the rule must be such which is understood equally by everybody. You see, today I have been a student of administration. I have been a student of science, but I have learned administration over a period of time. I did my master's in physics and mathematics, so I knew more of science before I entered the civil service. And where you say when each sentence in the law is about 5 or 7 lines. You start reading the first sentence, the first sentence would make one meaning. You come to the third sentence, you come to the fifth line, and then when you read, by the time you read the sentence, entire sentence of any legal, any law book, I think the drafting is such that 10 people read it and make 10 meanings out of it. And that is why the litigation increases. That is why the person keeps on making round of the courts. So every person, every babu sitting somewhere, depending on his interest in the case, will make out a different meaning. So why can't we make I have tried to give some examples when I come towards the end of it. It is possible. You don't need big things to bring out the good governance. You need very small things which can provide extremely big relief to the common citizens. We don't need to write a very plethora of laws for this. Yes, I think Professor Abhay Kumarji was saying the number of laws need to be reduced. The good governance is one, according to me. The laws are minimum. The enforcement is the strictest. Today we have the situation the other way around. We have too many laws, but hardly any enforcement. This provides the opportunity to the official to be corrupt. Official becomes corrupt when he thinks that yes, you can do anything and still get away with this. Somebody was referring to why we have corruption in the government system. I think the corruption in the government system, it's a very simple answer. If you make it easy for the officers to be corrupt, and for the corrupt officer, the risk is almost nothing and the gain is more, then people tend to be corrupt. If you just change the system a bit and say that if you are corrupt, there is more risk and less gain for corrupt people, I think nobody would like to be corrupt. So therefore, the risk element for the corrupt people have to be increased, and so that the gain has to be reduced. Automatically, people are not fooled. Most of them will become honest. And next point that comes to this thing is that the bureaucrats. I have been a bureaucrat all through, but I can say with some degree of humility that bureaucrats can have to bear the brunt to the 80 to 90%, and rest 10 to 20% can be ascribed to politicians. Generally, there is a tendency among the civil servants to unnecessarily shift their blame to the politicians for everything that is not done. If you have to simplify the thing, if you have to be available to the office, to the person who has sought time from you, if somebody makes you a telephone call, what prevents you from attending to a telephone call? If you are busy in a meeting, why can't you call him back? These are the things where there is no political interest. No politician will interfere if you receive a call of a common man. If you call back a common man and do the work in time, I don't think there is no political intervention. But for that, we need our bona fides have to be clear. What is our intent? Our intent will decide direction. The intent of the bureaucrat is to stay at a particular place or a particular posting and to be conniving with the people, then there is a problem. So therefore, as a class, I can say that if the civil servants were to keep their spine straight, that was considered to be a steel frame bureaucracy. But I don't know, steel has become wood, and wood has termite in it. So therefore, how does the spine remain straight? But therefore, but if the civil servants want, they can do it. That is one thing I wanted to say. And one is maintaining dignity of the common man. Any government office, wherever some common citizen comes, he expects a proper dignified treatment. And giving a dignity to the common person does not require any big thing. Just to share with you one small example, I was posted as a DM, a collector in a district which had a lot of tribal population. One of the most poor people were there in the tribal area. Some women came to meet me when I was a collector there. They came to meet me, but about 15, 20 years back maybe. They came with a petition, and when I asked them to sit on the chairs in front of the collector, they refused to sit. They thought I am insulting them because not even a Patwari had ever asked them to sit on the chairs. So therefore, they went back. I then sent my PA and got them back into my room, and then when I persuaded them to sit, they sat on the floor of the collector's office, not on the chairs. When after a lot of persuasion, when they did sit on the chair, then the type of things that they told me were totally different from what were written in the petition that they had brought, because they were half literate, semi-literate. Somebody else must have written for them, and therefore this was extremely heartening to hear from them. And when we were able to do something for that whenever the situation came. So maintaining dignity of office is sign of a good governance. Then accessibility is sign of a good governance. Accessibility to the people who are in charge. we have today the helplines, we have today the websites, but you go to any helpline, the helpline number you try, and unless I as an officer don't try the numbers, and I just mention the helpline number and people will get the number always engaged. What is the purpose of a helpline if it doesn't get responded? And if the helpline doesn't respond, rather don't have a helpline. My feeling is that the frustration in the public is directly I'm making a formula, physics formula sort of thing. The frustration of the public is directly inversely, or maybe say the directly responsible or directly proportional to the gap between the promised delivery and the actual delivery. The bigger the gap, larger the gap between the promises that we make, whether the government or the bureaucrats or anybody, then they make to the people, the larger the gap, more is the frustration. So if you want to keep the citizen happy, satisfied, don't make unnecessary promises. Only promise that what you can give and improve the delivery of services and reduce the unnecessary expectation, then the gap between the two would be reduced and the satisfaction level of the people would be there. Last point, I think there are many points, but just lastly, one or 2 points I'll make. There are 3 types of, I'm putting it from the bureaucrat's point of view mainly because it is easy to criticize ourselves than to talk about the other class in the society. Bureaucrats are of 3 types. One is the people who are apathetic. They don't bother about what happens to the common man. They are just they are not at all bothered about the citizens, and therefore we call them the apathetic class. And there are many of these types also, because in government service, the civil service, when you do join a civil service for 30, 35, 40 years, till such time you superannuate, it is almost secure. So they become apathetic. Second class of the people is the sympathetic. Sympathetic people are better than the apathetic ones, but there is again a problem. Sympathetic means we are the givers, the common man is the receiver, so we are the gods, you are the bhaktas, and we'll do whatever we have to do with this. If the people go on tour, they'll say, I gave you the road, I gave you the school, I gave you the college, and they will, but without realizing that this is not being, sorry? Anybody saying something?
No,
Somebody
sir.
is
By
screaming.
chance, someone has unmuted mic. Now it's mute.
Okay,
Kindly continue, sir.
okay. Is it okay now?
Right, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, so therefore now I was saying the second thing is sympathetic. The sympathetic people are better than the apathetic ones, but the problem there is that I become the giver. That is, I become the, in Hindi, if you were to say, I am the data, you are the pata. Need of the hour, or the essence of good governance is for the officers to treat the citizen like neither data or pata, but brata. That is a brother, equal. That is what we call in English as the empathy. So empathetic type of officers would automatically provide good governance, whatever the laws, whatever the rules, whatever the regulations. If the intent is good, इसको कहता है नीति कैसी भी हो, नियत अच्छी है, तो कोई सी भी नीति से अच्छा सुशासन हो सकता है. और नियत आपकी खराब है और नीति बढ़िया से बढ़िया बना दें, तब भी वो बात नहीं बनेगी. तो ये बहुत सारी बातें हैं. कुछ लास्ट में आप कहें तो 1 मिनट में मैं अपनी एक सुना, 10 मिनट हो गए मेरे, एक छोटी सी 2 मिनट की पोएम सुना सकता हूँ, आप कहें तो?
बिल्कुल सर, सुना दीजिए.
इट इज इन हिंदी, और इसका टाइटल यह है, देश का मालिक कौन. वी लिव इन द कंट्री इंडिया, आई एम टॉकिंग विद रेफरेंस टू इंडिया. देश का मालिक कौन? इस देश का मालिक कौन? नेता, अफसर, पत्रकार या जज? ये 4 पिलर, क्योंकि यही तो कहलाते हैं लोकतंत्र के 4 पाए. पाए होते हैं मजबूती देने के लिए, ताकि 4 पाए टूटे नहीं और उस पर बैठा व्यक्ति स्वस्थ रहे, चोटिल न हो. लेकिन 73 वर्षों में क्या किया इन पायों ने? ये तो अर्थी के पाए साबित हुए. इस देश तंत्र में लोकतंत्र की हत्या कर उसकी अर्थी ही निकाल दी. कहते हैं नेता देश के कर्णधार होते हैं. हाँ, ये धार तो बने, लेकिन उस तलवार की जिसने आम आदमी के सुखों का गला ही रेत दिया. तो तलवार धार तो बने, लेकिन उस तलवार की जिसने आम आदमी के सुखों का गला ही रेत दिया. क्या न किया तुमने हे नेता. ठेके में कमीशन, तबादले में पैसा, खरीद में पैसा, यहाँ तक कि आकाश में स्पेक्ट्रम बेचने तक में खा गए पैसा. उसी जनता के अरमानों को पैरों तले रौंद दिया जिसने बड़ी उम्मीद से तुम्हें कुर्सी पे बिठाया था. उसी जनता के अरमानों को पैरों तले रौंद दिया जिसने तुम्हें उम्मीद से कुर्सी पे बिठाया था. नहीं, तुम देश के मालिक नहीं हो सकते. हाँ, अफसरों से अपेक्षा थी कि वे आम आदमी की बात करेंगे, कानून का राज स्थापित करेंगे, गरीब का पैसा गरीब तक पहुंचाएंगे, निष्पक्षता से काम करेंगे, जात पात से ऊपर उठकर अपने हित से पहले देश का हित रखेंगे। लेकिन क्या किया तुमने? देश हित को स्वहित के गिरवी रख दिया, अपने छोटे छोटे स्वार्थ के लिए अपना जमीर बेच दिया। इसलिए तुम्हें तो मालिक कहने में भी शर्म आती है। अब बचे पत्रकार और जज। पत्रकारों के बारे में सुना था, आप सब कई सारे पत्रकारिता के स्टूडेंट्स भी हैं आपके, इसलिए खास तौर से रेलेवेंट है इसलिए वाला। पत्रकारों के बारे में सुना था कि वे बिना दबाव के सही सच्ची बात कहेंगे, सही सच्ची बात अपने अखबार के जरिए लोगों तक पहुंचाएंगे। वह दिन को दिन और रात को रात कहेंगे, मलाई देखकर लार नहीं टपकाएंगे। लेकिन दोस्त, तुम तो बेपंदे के लोटे निकले, जिसने ज्यादा दिया उधर ही लुढ़क गए। ये सब करके तुम अखबार के मालिक भले ही बन जाओ, देश के मालिक कहलाने का अधिकार तुमने खो दिया। जज को कई लोग तुरुप का इक्का मानते थे। जब कोई और चले ना चले, यह तो चलेगा ही। जब और सब साथ छोड़ दें लोग का, तो यह साथ देगा ही। लेकिन यह भी बिकने में पीछे नहीं रहा। बोली कुछ ज्यादा हो सकती है, जिसका पलड़ा भारी न्याय उसी का। वजन नहीं तो न्याय नहीं। आपका रीडर, जो लोग कोर्ट में गए जानते, रीडर होता है जज के पास, आपका रीडर तो आपसे भी महान है। वह चाहे तो फाइल ही गायब करवा दे, फिर ढूंढते रहो न्याय अदालत के गलियारों में। तो दोस्तों, मैंने लिखी पूरी पढ़ इन 4 लाइन्स के लिए जो मैं कह रहा हूँ। तो दोस्तों, सारे पाए टूट चुके हैं। इनके भरोसे लोकतंत्र स्वस्थ नहीं बच सकता, केवल मर सकता है। अब तो बस एक ही रास्ता बचा है, और वह यह कि असली मालिक जागे। लोकतंत्र में असली मालिक लोक यानी आम आदमी के अलावा और कोई हो नहीं सकता। समय आ गया है जब आम आदमी जागे और लोकतंत्र के चारों पायों को सही रास्ते पर लाए। So, therefore, friends, before that situation comes in, we must all wake up in time and provide good governance to the people of the country. This is what they deserve. They deserve much more than what we have been able to do for them. And if there are any questions, I can keep on and on. I'm sorry, Usha, if I've exceeded my time limit. But
No
I
issue.
think you can delete the poem part of it. But I think
So we won't be deleting it. It is beautiful poem.
I'll stop here. If there are some questions, I think I'll as a response to
yeah.
that, I can do it later.
Sure, sir.
And
Sure, sir.
maybe
Thank
some
you
other
so
time
much.
when you have a longer day-long seminar when the corona is over and we meet physically, then I think we can do a day-long discussion.
Definitely,
best.
sir. Definitely.
Thank you all very much for listening to me very patiently, and I'll wait for the questions. Thank you.
Yeah, right. So thank you so much, sir. Absolutely right. You have figured out so many things, because with your kind experience that you have had all these 38 years, now I'm correct. And you talked about that the drafting, definitely, we have been observing it, that it has to be simple. Then, of course, the governance must be open to all, uniform to all, and smooth to all. Why these simple things cannot be done? If these simple things can be done, probably we are sure that we can have a good governance. And the important point, that why we cannot keep our spine straight. If that corruption thing will not be there, we can definitely keep it straight. And once if we have to happen this, develop and build this practice, no worries about getting into this matter, that why the governance is not good, why it is fluctuating here and there. And the most important part, why only we are talking about the government, or we are talking about one organization or that organization or this and that, why this empathetic feeling cannot be there with everyone. Again, by the closing of your talk, you talked about that we need to wake up. So it's we, it's I, from me, I, everything starts. So if each and every individual will take this responsibility to get aware and then talk and take a decision and work accordingly, then of course the governance will be good and better and best. So that was a lovely talk delivered by you, sir. We are really happy to have you amongst us here on this platform. We do have a number of questions. I'll just scroll the chat. I could see I think Rakesh ji has asked a question, and he has also commented here. But first, I'll go to the question. Okay, Dhananjay Bhanja he has put a question here. Apart from quality education, the role of present day media and journalists, a few are adamant for their TRP. So media, he has specifically talked about media here, the governance of media. So media and mass communication need a lesson for good governance. If this is true, then what is the remedy? So I can see at present Professor Abhay and Rajendra ji on screen. Anybody who wants to take this?
What is the question? Actually, Abhay wants to respond, then probably I can chip in. Yeah.
Sir, please, Shri Rajendra ji, please go ahead first.
Okay, I'll repeat the question. Apart
Yes.
from quality education, the role of present-day media and journalists, a few are adamant for their TRP. So media and mass communication need a lesson for good governance. If this is true, then what is the remedy? We already answered this, sir, but please.
चलिए अब अभय जी बोल रहे हैं, फिर मैं एक लाइन बोल दूंगा, पहले अभय जी से बात पूछ लीजिए,
अच्छा,
मैं
नहीं,
एक लाइन में बोल दूंगा बस.
Okay, fine. Whatever I had said during my submission also, that sometimes the media tends to tilt towards one point of opinion, which may or may not be the right one. So we find so many, say, halves, maybe tilting to the right, left, center, centric. We all read this. So what is the remedy? Again, remedy is minimum laws, maximum enforcement. We have to do that. So Shri Rajendra ji, whatever he said, I think that is the answer to that question. Thank you.
Yes, I can say just one thing. देखिए, एक तो media is, let us not be under the illusion that media is independent. Gone are the days when editors used to be the owners and editors used to bring out papers. These days, most of the media houses, whether it is print media or electronic media, are owned by business houses. And if they are owned by business houses, they have a particular way of thinking, and therefore they promote a particular type of thinking, that the ideology that they believe in. And therefore, to expect the media which is owned by a particular ideological business house with a particular ideology, to expect them to be very independent is probably asking too much of them. But yes, if for TRP, if somebody is doing something, TRP is generated by the audience, and if the people do not see those channels or read those newspapers which are totally biased, automatically their sales would go down. When the viewership goes down, then the advertisement would not come in. If the advertisement would not come in, then the channel would have to rethink about the policy and will come up with something which is more independent. So it is the viewers also who have to force them to see that the truth is given to the people and not the post-truth, maybe.
Right, sir. Probably Dhananjay ji, you have got the answer.
सर मेरा इसमें ये सबमिशन है सर, मीडिया की जो इंडिपेंडेंसी की बात अपन करते हैं, मेरे ख्याल किसी दौर में शायद नहीं रही होगी. जब हम लोकतांत्रिक समाज की बात कर रहे हैं तो मीडिया भी उसी का प्रतिनिधि है और डिफरेंट तरह की जो थॉट्स हैं. देखिए, खबरों में हमारी अपेक्षा है कि हम सूचना दें, बाकी जो एडिटोरियल कंटेंट है अखबार की अपेक्षा में यही है कि सभी तरह के विचारों को प्रकाशित कर दें. लेकिन अभी अभय कुमार जी ने एक बात कही थी सोशल मीडिया के लिए. मुझे लगता है आम आदमी के हाथ में एक ऐसा हथियार आ गया है जहां वास्तविक अर्थों में सूचनाओं और विचारों का लोकतांत्रिकरण हो सकता है. जिन चुनौतियों की आपने बात की वो हमेशा से रही हैं. मेरे ख्याल जब नई तकनीक आई है अपने साथ नए खतरे लेकर के आई है, लेकिन कम से कम ऐसा मंच तो मिला है जहां हम फ्रीली डिबेट कर सकते हैं. अखबारों की पूरी टोटल ऑब्जेक्टिविटी की बात तो मेरे ख्याल एक बहुत बड़ा सपना है, वो शायद कभी पूरा नहीं होगा. आजादी से पहले भी ऐसे अखबार थे जिन्होंने आजादी का विरोध किया. अभी भी ऐसे अखबार हैं जिनको हम ट्रेडिशनल या ऑर्थोडॉक्स या कुछ भी कह सकते हैं, वो तो मेरे ख्याल हमेशा रहेगा. टीआरपी के लिए मुझे लगता है कि नई पीढ़ी को समझाना पड़ेगा ये बहुत बड़ा ऐसा षड्यंत्र है जिसके हम शिकार हो रहे हैं. मात्र 40,000 घरों में ये मीटर लगा करके पूरे देश की अभिरुचियों को जिस तरह से तय करने का षड्यंत्र रचा गया, मेरे ख्याल पार्लियामेंट में भी बात की गई कि इस पे बैन लगाया जाए. और अभी जो घटनाक्रम हुआ है, बार्क ने लंबे समय के लिए, शायद 3 महीने के लिए इसको स्टे कर दिया है. और आज ही मैंने पढ़ा है कि जो एड कंपनीज हैं उन्होंने अपने जो कंपनीज हैं उनको ये डायरेक्टिव्स दिए हैं कि आप टेलीविजन से एड को विड्रॉ करें और जो डिजिटल मीडिया है या जो और प्लेटफॉर्म्स हैं उसकी ओर आए. तो मुझे लगता है कि ये टीआरपी सर्कुलेशन ये फिर एक बड़ा घपला है. ये रिपोर्ट्स जो आपने बात की, आरएनआई की रिपोर्ट्स वगैरह जो हैं उसमें भी मुझे लगता है कि सत्यता का अंश नहीं के बराबर है. ऐसी स्थिति में टोटल ऑब्जेक्टिविटी की कल्पना किसी मीडिया हाउस से करना मुझे लगता है कि एक दुस्वप्न होगा, संभव नहीं है. हमारे पास एक माध्यम है, उसका उपयोग करें.
Aptly said, sir. We have another question. Yash Kumar Jaiswal ji. I think Professor Shikha, you're there. If you want, you can answer for this question. What is the main challenge for good governance and citizens in COVID-19? Unmute yourself.
The challenges is this is a time where government can actually show that they care about people. Government has an opportunity to show that I care about the citizen, but actually they are misusing all the equipments that are actually meant to provide facilities to the citizens. So it is a personal greed. It is a lack of consciousness. So the biggest challenge is people are losing their values here. There's a lack of consciousness in thinking, and this is not the time to think of my own personal benefit. This is the time we become collective. So the personal greed is actually great at this time, and this is the biggest challenge. We are not talking about political corruption only. We are talking about corruption that is taking place at a personal level in different sectors at this time.
Right.
Can I add one thing? Can I add one thing to what Shikha ji has said? Just this,
Yes.
what I'm saying is that best and the worst in the human being has come out in the COVID times. The people have joined together for a cause which people might not have expected, and sometimes the exploitation has also gone to the maximum by a group of people. So the crisis or the COVID situation in the Indian context, I'm saying, has brought out the best in the human beings. People have done so much for their fellow beings who were being treated initially falling sick, and as a society, they have come up to the right. They have risen up to the occasion, and maybe must be the case in other parts of the world also. But in India, I can say the society. But the worst also has come up. Some doctors started exploiting the situation. Hospitals started exploiting the situation. Yes, so these are the challenges. Not moving out and not moving people. No education. No children get together. They are certainly a big challenge. Please go ahead, Usha. Yeah.
Right, sir. Thank you so much. Thank you, Professor Shikha. Professor Abhay, I'll be putting this question to you because Rajendra sir के लिए अभी 3 questions lined up हैं महिमा जी के. So I'll be putting this question to Professor Abhay. Irshad Bhatt का है ये question, and he's asking, I think e-governance is must for good governance. How government fails for implementing e-governance? That is his question.
किसके लिए है? अभय जी के लिए.
Either of you can answer it.
राजेंद्र जी आप बताएं, थोड़ा सा मैट कर देंगे उसको.
मैं तो अभय जी इतना सा कह सकता हूँ. देखिए, digitization or e-thing is only a tool. It is not the substitute for a good human being. Let us understand it. Digitization per se is not going to help much, because that is what is happening in the digital payment system, digital transfer system, digital education system. It is only a very few sections of the society which are able to take benefit of it. Most of the other types of people who are not even fully literate, they are being fleeced because of the digitization. If you earlier, the fake signatures could be maybe tallied and one could come to the conclusion they are fake. Now with the password system, any poor person, illiterate person who's Narega, I had this experience. I was working as commissioner of Narega. The money used to get transferred, but when the money used to be withdrawn from the bank, there was a lot of problems. They did not understand how the passwords were, how these things were, and somebody in the middle, some middleman would fleece them. So digitization, e-governance is good, but let us always be clear that e-governance, e-thing, digitization, etc., they are only a tool. A tool in the hands of a rascal will spoil the situation. A tool in the hands of an angel will probably, or maybe the right type of human being will probably help a lot. Yes, please.
राजेंद्र जी, वैसे आपने बहुत अच्छी बात बोली. मे बी आई एक्सेप्ट व्हाट यू हैव सेड टू क्वाइट एन एक्सटेंट, बट देन आई बेग टू डिफर आल्सो, because you know, sir, when we talk about online teaching in education, for instance, we know that blended learning is going to come, that synchronized and asynchronous both learnings are going to be there. E-governance, in my opinions, is very important, and say things like telemedicine. Okay, some of them may have exploited, but then many have benefited also. And I'll give you a small say input, sir, that even in rural areas, smartphones, the way they are being operated by young minds of the rural areas, sometimes baffles me. Maybe I don't know what are the features in those smartphones except for messaging and WhatsApping or using the Facebook or LinkedIn. So I think social media has transformed the use of, say, the use of how e-governance is to be done. Say, even in villages, I've been in Himachal in the past as Vice Chancellor of one of the universities. I have seen the government putting, say, e-Chowpals in which the farmers were able to sell their products in Mumbai if the quality was justified by them. So these access to banking, access to bank, we have to be careful. If some new technology comes, then we have to be careful also as to how to save ourselves. If I remember during my young age, when cooking gas had come, people used to say कि इसमें bomb blast हो जाता है, don't keep it in the kitchen. But now, if we are making use of that thing with precautions, with proper care. So I think the government, the public, everyone has to be careful regarding how usage of these tools. Tools are there, but usage, you have to be careful. That is what I am saying.
Yeah, so need is to enhance the capacities of the citizens to extract the best out of the
Exactly.
Enhancing the capacity is quite important. Enhancing the capacity of the citizens. But many surveys have said, Abhayji, that about 80% of the children in the rural areas and in the semi-urban areas do not have access to smartphone. If family has one phone, there are 3 children, father and mother, they're going for work. Then I think, but there are issues, but we have to cope with that. And with the passage of time, as the capacities improve, I think that things would improve.
Yeah, Rajan ji, the digital divide is here.
सर मेरा ये मानना है कि आज भले ही चुनौतियां हो, लेकिन पिछले कुछ सालों में कनेक्टिविटी भी बेटर हुई है, एक्सेस भी लोगों का बढ़ा है. तो ऐसा नहीं है कि देश हमेशा ही वो रहेगा. कल तक 5% लोगों के पास था, आज 20% लोगों के पास आया है. कम से कम इस ऑनलाइन मीडिया ने ई गवर्नेंस में ये फायदा तो पहुंचाया है कि हमारे को सूचना तक एक्सेस हुई है. आज हर डिपार्टमेंट के बारे में जानकारी प्राप्त करनी है तो मैं उनकी वेबसाइट पे जाकर के देख सकता हूं, या जो जानकार है उसके माध्यम से मैं पूछ सकता हूं. तो मुझे लगता है इस पूरे सिस्टम को एकदम से खारिज कर देना वो शायद अन्याय होगा. चुनौतियां हैं, आने वाले टाइम में फिर देखेंगे हम. तो क्या आपको ये नहीं लगता है कि जब आपने नरेगा में 10 साल पहले या 5 साल पहले किया, उसके बाद आज तक उस नरेगा में 10% लोग ऐसे होंगे जिनकी इकोनॉमिक कंडीशंस इंप्रूव हुई होंगी और उन्होंने इस डिजिटल मीडिया का एक्सेस एक सीमा तक बढ़ा होगा. तो मुझे लगता है हम आगे वाले 5-10 साल में भी ये सोचने की कोशिश करें.
जब ये कोविड सिचुएशन खत्म हो जाए ना, तो अपने पार्टिसिपेंट को कहिएगा आसपास के किसी गांव में जाके 15-20 दिन लेके आएंगे, पता लग जाएगा.
वो ठीक है, आज नहीं है, लेकिन मैं कहता हूँ जो अभी अभय जी ने कहा कुकिंग गैस आई तब हमें ये कहा गया था. मुझे ध्यान है 70s के दौर में जब हम पढ़ते थे उस समय डिबेट होती थी टीवी अभिशाप है या वरदान है, और ऐसा लगता था पूरी पीढ़ी बर्बाद हो गई, सांस्कृतिक आक्रमण हमारे ऊपर हो गया, अब पीढ़ी बचेगी नहीं, बर्बाद हो जाएगी. यही हुआ जब सिनेमा आया, तब भी मेरे ख्याल यही बहस हुई होगी. जब प्रिंटिंग का आविष्कार हुआ तब भी ये बहस होती थी. तो मुझे लग रहा है ये समय का दौर है, अब हम वापस लौटेंगे नहीं. 5G आने वाला है, कैसे इंडस्ट्रीज को प्रभावित करेगा. अब तो आपने देखा होगा ये जो रोबोट है वो संपादकीय लिख रहे हैं अखबारों का, पीछे हम जा ही नहीं सकते. तो मुझे लग रहा है
आगे संजय जी पीछे जाने की बात नहीं कर रहा मैं, इतनी साथ बढ़ के आगे, साथ मिलके आगे चले, तो सबको साथ लेके चले, बस ये कह रहा हूँ मैं. खाली आगे पीछे जाने की बात नहीं कर रहा मैं.
कोशिश उसी और जारी होनी चाहिए.
This has taken a wonderful shape now. It's a lovely debate. We are going to organize another webinar on this topic because all the intellectuals being together, they are going to contribute with their intellect and their minds so widely opened. So we can definitely plan for another webinar on this. But हाँ राजेंद्र सर, आपके लिए बहुत straight forward and blunt questions महिमा जी ने डाले हुए हैं, मैं वो जरूर लेना चाहूंगी. उसके बाद हम लोग समाप्त करेंगे because probably we are about to run with approx 1:45 hours.
You had one more speaker, no? You are having one more speaker, no?
Sir, due to some reasons he couldn't be here. He got occupied.
Okay.
So
then it's all right. I thought there was one more speaker. Okay.
Yes, he was there, but due to some unavoidable circumstances, he couldn't be here with us. But these are the questions which I'm going to take, and we would love if you can answer them in brief so that we can wind up, because video बहुत लंबा हो जाता है तो uploading में हमें problem आ जाती है. So the questions from Mahima ji is, and she is a very active participant of our webinars, and इनको हम बिल्कुल ignore नहीं कर सकते हैं, और screen पर दिख भी रही हैं और नमस्ते भी किया है आपने. So she is asking, आपको राजनीतिक leadership में से सामंजस्य बिठाने में दिक्कत हुई और क्यों? मैं साथ में सर सारे questions ले रही हूँ because I know you will be able to handle all the questions all together. Secondly, she has asked, नागरिक समस्याओं का समाधान बिना राजनीतिक दखल और नौकरशाही क्यों नहीं करती? आज तीसरा क्वेश्चन है, आज संवेदनशीलता और सहयोग की भावना नहीं दिखती महामारी, पलायन और आज के आंदोलन पर, और उत्तरदेयता की कमी क्यों? ओवरऑल द क्वेश्चन इज कि उत्तरदेयता की कमी क्यों है, एंड व्हाई दिस व्हाई सिविल सर्वेंट्स कैन नॉट टेक द रिस्पांसिबिलिटीज डायरेक्टली ऑन देयर ओन.
Okay, civil service cannot take the responsibility on this because they are as a class, many of them are selfish and their vested interest. They are more concerned about their place and the type of posting. So therefore, as a class, I am saying, इसीलिए मैंने कहा था पहले स्टील फ्रेम कहा था, स्टील फ्रेम से वुडन फ्रेम हो गई, वुडन फ्रेम में टर्माइट लग गई, टर्माइट विद वुड जैसा होगा वैसी है. But this is no exception. This is part of the larger society. Let me say this. But yes, they have to show the way because they are expected to be leaders. They are the best in the country. अगर मान लो इतने तरह के लोगों से सेलेक्ट होते हैं तो they are expected to be leading the society by exemplary work. So therefore that is one. सेकेंड, आपने पॉलिटिशियन के साथ तालमेल वाली बात की. उन्होंने ये सुना होगा कि 38 साल में 30 तबादले हो गए तो तालमेल नहीं बैठता, इसलिए तबादले हो गए, यही माना होगा उन्होंने शायद, मेरे ख्याल है. लेकिन मैं ये कहना चाहता हूँ, मेरा तालमेल जनता के साथ था. तो मैं अभी भी एक चीज कहूँ, जैसे एक जगह करीब 25 साल पहले जिस डिस्ट्रिक्ट में मैं कलेक्टर था, डूंगरपुर डिस्ट्रिक्ट है राजस्थान का, सदर्न एरिया में, मेरा जब वहां से जब ट्रांसफर हुआ तो अखबार में बड़ी मीडिया, बड़ा लोकल मीडिया था, बड़ी खबर छपी बड़े बड़े अक्षरों में, मेरे ट्रांसफर से जनता में रोष, नेताओं को राहत. तो आई डिड नॉट नीड अ बिगर सर्टिफिकेट देन दैट. अगर मेरे ट्रांसफर से जनता में रोष होता है वहां से, तो आई वुड बी हैप्पी बिकॉज एटलीस्ट जो सामंजस्य की बात की, मेरा अभी भी मानना यह है कि सिविल सर्वेंट्स को समझना होगा उनका कमिटमेंट किसी पार्टी इन पावर के प्रति नहीं है, उनका कमिटमेंट किसी पर्टिकुलर पॉलिटिशियन के प्रति नहीं हो सकता, उनका कमिटमेंट किसी एमएलए एमपी के प्रति, उनका कमिटमेंट है कॉमन सिटीजन के प्रति. और बल्कि मैं तो यहाँ तक कहता हूँ सभी पॉलिटिशियंस का कमिटमेंट भी कॉमन सिटीजन के लिए है. जब दोनों क्लासेस का कमिटमेंट अगर कॉमन सिटीजन्स के लिए है, जो कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन हम लोगों को मैंडेट करता है, तो फिर किस बात की प्रॉब्लम है? किसी तरह की कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं है. ये हो सकता है बिकॉज ऑफ सम पॉलिटिकल कंपल्शंस और पॉलिटिकल एक्सपीडियंसी, दे माइट हैव हैड टू ट्रांसफर मी फ्रॉम वन प्लेस टू अनदर, बट देन द मेनी टाइम्स द चीफ मिनिस्टर एंड मिनिस्टर्स हैव टोल्ड मी, राजन जी आपका ट्रांसफर तो करना पड़ा, हमें लगता था कि आप वहां रहना चाहिए, लेकिन हमारे पास भी ये मजबूरियां हैं. आई अंडरस्टूड देयर कंपल्शंस, they have to win, they have to contest elections every 5 years, so they have the compulsions. But I as a civil servant had no compulsion. If I come to the service and serve here for 37 38 years, I am supposed to be doing what is good for the people, of course within the broader framework of law, without any disrespect to any politician. कई लोगों में officers में problem क्या है, they try to ridicule politicians, which is again wrong because we are all working as a system together. तो मुझे कोई सामंजस्य में कमी नहीं आई. अपने मतभेद अपना हो सकता है, अपनी अपनी जो, लेकिन कमिटमेंट अगर कॉमन मैन के प्रति है, नीयत आपकी साफ है, तो कोई किसी तरह की दिक्कत है नहीं इसके अंदर. और प्रॉब्लम सॉल्व तो आपने कहा क्यों नहीं कर सकते हैं, मैं अभी भी मानता हूँ कि मेजर रेस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी फॉर प्रोवाइडिंग गुड गवर्नेंस स्टिल टुडे लाइज विद द सिविल सर्वेंट्स एज अ क्लास. सिविल सर्वेंट कोई भी हो सकता है, he could be an engineer also, he could be a doctor also, he could be a vice chancellor also, he could be anybody. So civil servant, when I say civil servant, I am using it as a, कहा जाता है, we are all public servants, but we have to ask ourselves, are we really servants of the public or have we become masters of the public? If we continue to remain servants of the public, then this question would not come in the minds of anybody in the country. We have to continue to remain public servants. एंड सर्वेंट की जो जिम्मेदारी होती है वो निभाते रहें, कहीं कोई दिक्कत नहीं है.
थैंक यू सो मच सर. महिमा जी, आई होप यू हैव गॉट द आंसर. अब इसी के साथ मैं इसी के साथ मैं प्रोफेसर संजीव भानावत जी से निवेदन करूंगी कि वे वोट ऑफ थैंक्स के लिए इस मंच को संभालें.
और किसी को अगर फिर भी बाद में सवाल हो तो आप कभी ईमेल बाद में किसी चैट बॉक्स में डाल दीजिएगा. किसी को अगर कोई भी सवाल है तो मेरा ईमेल आप दे सकते हैं उनको, और वो कभी भी to the best of my ability will, क्योंकि अभी तो टाइम कम है, but to the best of my ability I try to answer those questions even after the seminar or the webinar. If there are any questions, I will be very happy to receive those questions on email or through WhatsApp, whatever means. I
Sure,
don't mind.
sir.
Yes.
चलिए सर,
Right,
बहुत
right, sir. Thank
बहुत
you, sir.
धन्यवाद आपका। ये मुझे लग रहा है चर्चा बड़ी विचारोत्तेजक रही। शुरू में हमें लग रहा था पता नहीं विषय कहीं नीरस तो नहीं होगा, पता नहीं पार्टिसिपेंट जुड़ेंगे नहीं जुड़ेंगे, क्योंकि कल तक मात्र 48 रजिस्ट्रेशन थे। ये हमारा जो तकनीकी पार्ट संभाल रही है हमारी जो रिसर्च स्कॉलर है पृथ्वी सेंगर, उन्होंने मुझे अभी भी मैसेज करके बताया कि 126 रजिस्ट्रेशन हुए और इस वेबिनार में फिलीपींस, दक्षिण अफ्रीका, श्रीलंका, मलेशिया, नेपाल और पाकिस्तान, वहाँ के प्रतिनिधि भी हमारे साथ जुड़े थे। और इस वेबिनार में एक नया प्रयोग हमने किया। पिछले करीब 15-20 दिन से हम लोग सोच रहे थे कि कैसे इसको जोड़े, वो टेक्निक समझ में नहीं आ रही थी, लेकिन पृथ्वी ने विशेष कोशिश की और सबने मुझे फोन किया कि साहब अपन अपने इस वेबिनार को सोशल मीडिया पे स्ट्रीमिंग कर सकते हैं, और उसमें सफलता मिली और पृथ्वी ने अपने फेसबुक अकाउंट से इसको लाइव किया है। तो आज ये पूरी प्रोसीडिंग्स जो है वो फेसबुक के माध्यम से भी लाइव गई है, फिर हमने भी शेयर किया हमारे फेसबुक पे। तो अलग अलग, मेरे ख्याल उषा ने भी शेयर किया है, शिखा को भी मैंने कहा था, उन्होंने भी शेयर किया होगा। तो इस प्रकार से ये जो वेबिनार है ये लगभग एक पूरे देश में जो रजिस्टर्ड पार्टिसिपेंट्स हैं उनके साथ साथ सोशल मीडिया स्ट्रीमिंग के अगली बार कोशिश करेंगे हम कि वो जो टेक्नोलॉजी है उसको और समझें, और यूट्यूब के माध्यम से भी, फेसबुक, यूट्यूब और जो रजिस्टर्ड पार्टिसिपेंट्स हैं। दूसरा एक महत्वपूर्ण बात यह है कि मैं भानव जी से कह भी रहा था कि अमूमन होता है कि 1-1.25 घंटे के बाद धीरे धीरे लोग लेफ्ट आउट हो जाते हैं, लेकिन मैं देख रहा हूं कि अभी 56 पार्टिसिपेंट्स जुड़े हुए हैं। ये भी अपने आप में इस बात की ओर संकेत है कि इस विषय के प्रति, इन सरोकारों के प्रति हम सब लोग, चाहे विद्यार्थी के रूप में हैं, चाहे हम लोग प्रोफेशनल हैं, मीडिया से जुड़े हुए हैं, अलग अलग वर्गों के हम सभी क्षेत्र के लोग हैं यहाँ पर पैनलिस्ट के रूप में और पार्टिसिपेंट के रूप में, उन्होंने इसकी महत्ता को समझा और पूरे करीब 1.25 घंटे अपने को हो गए हैं इसमें अपनी सक्रिय उपस्थिति बनाई रही। और क्वेश्चन और आंसर जिस तरह से हो रहे हैं और जो जिस तरह से विचार उभर करके आए हैं, मुझे लगता है कि ये भी इस विषय की महत्ता का प्रतिपादन करते हैं। राजेंद्र भानावत जी ने अपने अनुभव आपके साथ शेयर किए। मुझे तो ये अवसर मिला है, हमारे बहुत सारे आयोजनों में उनकी सहभागिता, उपस्थिति और मार्गदर्शन हमको मिलता रहा है। बहुत सारे अनुभव, क्योंकि इनका मल्टी डायमेंशनल एक्सपीरियंस रहा है। कहाँ नरेगा जैसी योजनाएं जहाँ बिल्कुल धरती से जुड़े हुए जो लोग हैं उनसे इन्होंने संवाद स्थापित किया, तो वहीं रिको जैसे अर्बन डेवलपमेंट की जहाँ बात करते हैं, टूरिज्म जैसे, लिटरेसी के, एजुकेशन के, न जाने कितने डिपार्टमेंट्स का लेके जो आपने अनुभव किया, तो ग्रास रूट लेवल से लेकर के उच्च स्तर पर, और आपने तो पूरी पुस्तक लिखी 38 साल के अपने उन प्रशासनिक अनुभवों को लेकर के कि हमारे इस प्रशासनिक व्यवस्था में क्या क्या खामियां हैं और किस तरह से उनसे निपटने की तैयारी की जा सकती है। और राष्ट्रदूत के माध्यम से आप अतिथि संपादकीय, मेरे ख्याल आपने लगभग 1-1.5 साल में 350 इस तरह के संपादकीय लिखे हैं। वो आपके इस सजग और जो एक आपका चिंतनशील व्यक्तित्व उसको संकेत करते हैं।
मीडिया के लोगों के संपर्क में आने का फायदा यही है।
जी जी और अभय कुमार जी और आलोक जी, उनसे तो खैर मेरा ये पहला ही संवाद था, लेकिन आपको सुन के भी लगा कि शिक्षा के क्षेत्र में जो आपका एक बहुआयामी योगदान रहा है, एक रिसर्चर के रूप में जिस तरह से आपने सतत कार्य किया है, राष्ट्रीय अंतर्राष्ट्रीय जर्नल्स में जिस तरह से आप प्रकाशित हो रहे हैं और जिस तरह से इंस्टीट्यूशंस को बिल्ड किया है, ये भी मुझे लगता है एक बहुत बड़ी चुनौती होती है कि इस गिवन सिचुएशन में, क्योंकि मैंने तो एक छोटे से डिपार्टमेंट को विश्वविद्यालय के अंदर स्थापित किया था एक खाली कमरे से, और भानावत जी तो हमारे डिपार्टमेंट में आए भी थे जब हमने उसको रेनोवेट किया था, आज भी वो फोटोग्राफ है। तो सोच सकता हूँ कि एक डिपार्टमेंट को डेवलप करने में कितनी मेहनत लगती है। यहाँ आप यूनिवर्सिटीज और बड़े बड़े इंस्टीट्यूट को जिस तरह से लीडरशिप दे रहे हैं और डिफरेंट डिसिप्लिन के जो स्टूडेंट्स हैं, टीचर्स हैं, उनके साथ मिलकर के जिस तरह से, और अब तक बहुत बड़ी चुनौती और उसके साथ जो चैलेंजेस जुड़े हुए हैं न्यू एजुकेशन पॉलिसी के, क्योंकि मैंने तो पूरी पढ़ी और कई मंचों पर डिस्कशन भी किया है, ये एक बहुत बहुत बड़ा चुनौती है और इसमें कितनी संभावनाएं होंगी वो समय बताएगा। तो जिस तरह से आप सभी अपने क्षेत्र में काम कर रहे हैं और इतनी व्यस्तताओं के बीच, क्योंकि वाइस चांसलर की प्राथमिकताएं क्या हो सकती हैं, लेकिन फिर भी आपने इन विचार विमर्श में इतना समय हमको दिया और इस विचार में निरंतरता बनाए रखी, ये हमारे लिए एक उत्साह की बात है।
सर एक लाइन ऐड करना चाहूंगी प्रोफेसर अभय के लिए। उन्हें ट्रैवल करना था बट बिकॉज ऑफ दिस वेबिनार ही डिडंट डू दैट और ही स्टेड बैक सो दैट कुछ प्रॉब्लम ना हो वेबिनार में। थैंक यू अभय सर।
लगता है कि ये जो सामाजिक शैक्षिक सरोकारों के प्रति जो आपका एक स्नेह भाव है, क्योंकि बेसिकली तो वो शिक्षक ही इनके अंदर जीवित है, प्रशासक तो बाद में हो गए। तो वो जो एक शिक्षक मन में जीवित है, वही ऐसे शैक्षिक और विचार परक जो मुद्दे हैं उनसे जुड़ने के लिए बाध्य करता है, प्रेरित करता है, और डिफरेंट सेक्शन जो सोसाइटी के हैं उनसे संवाद करके इसमें कोई दो राय नहीं कि हम भी सीखते हैं। और डॉक्टर शिखा, वो तो चूंकि अब साउथ अफ्रीका में है और उनका तो ये पहला वेबिनार था जैसा उन्होंने मुझे कहा, तो ये जो उनका उत्साह उमंग है उसको मैं एहसास कर सकता हूँ, और लगातार ये मैसेज भी कर रही हैं इस उम्मीद में कि इस तरह की वेबिनार्स में उनकी सहभागिता, उन्होंने कहा है मुझे कि हर वेबिनार की सूचना दीजिए, मैं जुड़ूंगी, अपने साथियों को भी जोड़ूंगी। तो मुझे लग रहा है कि जिस मिशन को लेकर के हम आगे बढ़े हैं उसमें एक हमको न सिर्फ देश से, क्योंकि जो पार्टिसिपेंट हमारे हैं और सोशल मीडिया के थ्रू ही हम लोग जा रहे हैं, डिफरेंट जो प्लेटफॉर्म्स हैं, एफबी ग्रुप्स हैं, हमारे जो व्हाट्सएप ग्रुप्स हैं, सिग्नल टेलीग्राम पे जो हमारे ग्रुप हैं, उनके माध्यम से करीब करीब हम 20-25 हजार लोगों तक पहुंच जाते हैं सूचना के स्तर पर। यही कारण है कि लगभग हर राज्य से हमारे यहाँ पार्टिसिपेंट्स रजिस्टर्ड हो रहे हैं और कहीं ना कहीं बराबर वो संवाद में हैं, कभी टेलीफोन आते हैं, कभी मेल आते हैं, कई लोग जुड़ने की इच्छा प्रकट करते हैं। तो ये मुझे लग रहा है कि ये एक हमारे लिए बहुत उपलब्धि की बात है कि इस सारी चुनौतियों के बीच में हमने छोटी सी कोशिश की कि इस विचार की मशाल को हम जीवित रखें, जलाए रखें अपने सभी मित्रों के साथ जो देश के विभिन्न अंचलों में फैले हुए हैं। उनका जो अनुभव है उसको हम एक व्यापक समूह के साथ शेयर कर सकें। इनमें हमारे सभी पैनलिस्ट का जो हमको सहयोग मिला उनके प्रति व्यक्तिगत रूप से आभारी हूँ। सारे पार्टिसिपेंट्स जो देश के अलग अलग अंचलों से हमारे साथ जुड़े हैं और सक्रिय उनकी उपस्थित रही, उनके प्रति आभारी हूँ, इस विश्वास के साथ कि हमारे आगे के आयोजनों में भी उनका यही प्रोत्साहन हमको मिलता रहेगा। पृथ्वी सेंगर जो
संजीव जी संक्रमण से डर लगता है कि आपका और उषा जी का जो ये ऊर्जा का जो संक्रमण है ना वो हमें भी लग गया दिखता है थोड़ा। मतलब योर एनर्जी लेवल्स आर रियली इन्फेक्शियस, मुझे तो लगता है बिल्कुल जो है। तो
मुझे लगता है कि ये चीज है जो अपने को जिलाए रखती है, सक्रिय बने रहे विशेषकर अकादमिक कार्यों में। और अब तो पेंडेमिक खत्म हो गया, फिर यात्राओं का योग बन रहा है, तो हो सकता है कि थोड़ा इसमें व्यवधान आए, लेकिन मुझे लगता है कि ये निरंतरता जो मैंने शुरू में कहा था कि बनी रहेगी। फिजिकल भी अपन करेंगे, ये भी प्लान कर रहे हैं, महीने 15 दिन और निकल जाएं तो फिर सभी मित्रों को यहाँ बुला करके। लेकिन शुरू में मुझे लगा था कि ऑनलाइन में शायद वो आत्मीयता नहीं बनती है, लेकिन अब लगने लगा है बहुत सारे नए कनेक्शन हमारे इसके माध्यम से हुए और आज वो उसी आत्मीयता के साथ वो मित्र जुड़े हैं। खैर मैं ये कह था कि पृथ्वी ने जिस तरह से मेहनत की और वो फिल्म पे अपना पीएचडी कर रही है, तो लेकिन जिस तरह से तकनीक को समझते हुए इसने एफबी लाइव किया, ये तो मेरे लिए एक चमत्कार ही था। क्योंकि मैंने कई लोगों से पूछा था, उन्होंने मुझे कहा था कि ये जो हमने गूगल मीट का जो लिंक वाला ले रखा है इसमें सोशल मीडिया स्ट्रीमिंग पॉसिबल नहीं है। तो ये कई बार बहुत समय से हम इस पर कहीं चिंतन कर रहे थे, लेकिन आज उसने अपना पता नहीं कैसे ये खोज खाज करके रिसर्च करके ये जो एक्सपेरिमेंट किया है ये अपने आप में एक महत्वपूर्ण था। तो मैं उनके पृथ्वी को धन्यवाद या आभार तो क्या प्रकट करूं, मैं तो यही शुभकामना दूंगा कि अपना रिसर्च वो जल्दी पूरा करे और फिर टीचिंग में या जो भी सपने हैं उसको पूरा कर सकें। और डॉक्टर उषा, जैसा भानावत जी ने कहा कि पिछले 3 साल से हमारे साथ जुड़ी हैं और जिस तरह से वो अकादमिक क्षेत्र में काम कर रही हैं और जिस मनोयोग से जुड़ी हुई हैं, ये मेरे लिए भी प्रसन्नता की बात है। केवल जयपुर में एक पाठ्यक्रम के दौरान आज से 5 साल पहले एक परिचय हुआ था, तब उम्मीद नहीं थी कि ये परिचय इतना एक आत्मीयता में बदल जाएगा। और इनकी पिछली 3 साल की जो पूरी अकादमिक जर्नी है उसका तो मैं साक्षात दृष्टा हूँ और लगातार प्रोत्साहित भी करता रहता हूँ जहाँ तक मेरी क्षमता है उसके अनुरूप। और ये भी संतोष है कि वो उन दिशा बिंदुओं को, मार्गदर्शन को बिल्कुल जैसे कहते हैं ना अंधविश्वास होकर के, भरोसा करके आगे बढ़ रही है। और ये लिटवेब बेसिकली उन्हीं का ब्रेन चाइल्ड है। उन्होंने कहा था कि मैं लिटवेब के माध्यम से जो नॉन मीडिया वाले इश्यूज हैं उन पे कुछ चर्चा की शुरुआत करना चाहती हूँ। तो मैंने कहा ठीक है आप शुरू कीजिए, मैं साथ में हूँ। उन्होंने कहा नहीं आप भी इसके साथ जुड़ेंगे, तो मैंने कहा ठीक है। तो इस लिटवेब के माध्यम से भी हम शुरू कर रहे हैं और हम कोशिश करेंगे गांधी जयंती के दिन हम गांधी के किसी विचार दर्शन को लेकर के आपके साथ। और 29 जनवरी चूंकि हिंदुस्तान में पहला अखबार निकला था, एक अंग्रेज ने निकाला था, जेम्स ऑगस्टस हिक्की ने 29 जनवरी 1780 29 जनवरी 1780 को। तो मैं अपने पूरे करियर में हम हर साल डिपार्टमेंट केक भी काटते थे हम लोग, लेकिन अभी तो वो संभावना नहीं है। लेकिन किसी मीडिया के जो भानावत जी ने भी बात की कि पत्रकार की क्या हालत है उस कविता के माध्यम से, तो जो वरिष्ठ पत्रकार है, मेरे एक दो लोगों से बात भी हुई है, देश के अलग अलग
ज्यादातर पत्रकार जिनकी बात करी उनमें से आज कोई शामिल नहीं है वेबिनार में।
नहीं, पत्रकारों को हमने नहीं, वो हमने तो एकेडमिक
जिनकी मैंने बात करी वो उनमें से आज के वेबिनार में कोई शामिल नहीं है।
मैंने लिस्ट देखी नहीं पार्टिसिपेंट्स की, मेरा ध्यान तो सुनने में और उसमें जाया था। ये लिस्ट चेंज करने में मुझे डर लगता है कि लेफ्ट आउट नहीं हो जाए, टेक्नोलॉजी से इतना फ्रेंडली नहीं है, तो मैंने देखा नहीं कि कितने लोग जुड़े हैं। लेकिन जो रजिस्टर्ड हुए हैं उन तक ये सारे वीडियोस और ये पहुंचेंगे। अब लोग कितना देखते हैं करते हैं, लेकिन वीडियोस, मेरा फीडबैक है कि 100 से 150 के बीच लोग उसमें व्यूअरशिप आ जाती है यूट्यूब में। तो कम से कम कुल मिलाकर के हम सेटिस्फाइड हैं अपन कि जिस तरह से अपनी ये यात्रा है इसमें एक बड़ा समूह जुड़ रहा है। फिर जब मिलते हैं, बातचीत होती है, कभी किसी को भाषण देना है तो अपना वीडियोस निकाल लेते हैं। टीआरपी पे ओटीटी का आज वो तांडव सीरीज को लेकर इतना चल रहा है, हम 20 दिन पहले कर चुके हैं इसके ऊपर बहस, जब मिनिस्ट्री ने गाइडलाइंस निकाली थी। डिजिटल ये व्हाट्सएप वाली पॉलिसी की बात है, हमने तुरंत इस पर वो बातचीत की, साइबर एक्सपर्ट्स को बुलाया। तो कोशिश कर रहे हैं कि जो कंटेम्प्रेरी इश्यूज हैं उन पर चर्चा निरंतर जारी रहे। आप सभी मित्रों का ये सहयोग मिलता रहा है। मैं एक बार फिर आभारी हूँ हमारे चारों पैनलिस्ट, कन्वीनर और जो टेक्निकल सपोर्ट रहा उन सभी का, और सारे पार्टिसिपेंट्स का, और विशेषकर डॉक्टर शिखा का कि उन्होंने इसको अंतर्राष्ट्रीय रूप दिया और अपने डिपार्टमेंट के स्टूडेंट्स को और कलीग्स को हमारे साथ जोड़ा, इस उम्मीद में कि अपन जल्दी ही मिलेंगे और इन चर्चाओं को और आगे बढ़ाएंगे। बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद। जय हिंद, जय भारत।
जय हिंद, जय भारत।
थैंक यू।